morning, everyone. I'd like to call the Planning Commission meeting of June the 14th, 2022, call to order at 6:06 p.m. If you could have the, please stand for the flag salute. Put your right hand over your heart. Ready to begin? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Jessica, if you could have the roll call, please.
Okay. Commissioner Lopez, Commissioner Sanchez, out. Commissioner Quill, here. Commissioner Flores, here. Chair Guerrero,
Here.
Vice Chair Armstead, here. And Commissioner Lewis.
Present.
Okay.
And if we can have the administration of oath, please.
Okay. For anybody wishing to speak tonight, if you could please stand and raise your right hand. Yeah, public comment, yeah. Okay. Do you solemnly affirm that the testimony you're about to give before this body will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? If so, please say I do. I do. Okay, you can be seated. Thank you.
Is there anyone here wishing to speak on an item not on the agenda? Okay. Consent calendar.
Good evening, Commissioners. On the consent calendar, before we start with that, I did want to also make an announcement that item number 5 involving conditional use permit 21-21 and public convenience or necessity letter number 21-09 for the property located at 2155 North East Street. That was the request for the brew pub for the ABC Type 23 license for small beer wine manufacturer. Wanted to inform the Commission that the applicant has withdrawn that application. So that item will be removed from the agenda. Just wanted to let you know that in advance. And if anyone was in the audience, so they don't have to wait for that. So that would be removed from the agenda. With respect to the consent calendar, we have 3 items. Item number 1 is the approval of the draft minutes for the regular meeting of May the 10th, 2022. They're complete as submitted. Item number 2 is the draft minutes for the special meeting that we had on June the 4th to inspect the property for the item number 4 matter, which is on Central and Tippecanoe for CUP number 2116. Those minutes are complete as presented. And item number 3 is the ratification of the resolution for Code Amendment 22-03. And if I may read in, we continued to this meeting so that I could make some adjustment to the findings of the resolution before it went to the City Council. And if I may read that into the record, the proposed amendment is not consistent with the general plan. There is a variety of lot sizes within the city and varying sizes of existing single-family residences. In some areas of the city, the size and properties within the residential neighborhoods may not be sufficient in size to accommodate a detached or attached accessory dwelling unit without impacting the aesthetics of the neighborhood because of potential for overbuilding of the properties and thus invading the privacy of the neighbors. That's the first finding. The second would be that the amendment would be detrimental to the public health, safety of the community in that increasing the maximum size of the detached or attached accessory dwelling units will impact the aesthetics of the neighborhood because of the potential of overbuilding of the properties and thus invading the privacy of the neighbors. So those are the 2 findings. If those are acceptable, that is included as part of the consent calendar. So we're asking you to approve those 3 items. Thank you.
Thank you. Any discussion? No? Okay, we'll go ahead and go with the item number 1. If I can get a motion.
You could do all at one motion unless you have any changes to any of the 3 items.
The only thing is I would abstain from item 2 for the June 4th minutes since I wasn't present.
Well, that's fine.
Okay. So item number 1 for the minutes.
I motion to approve.
I'll second.
Second. Okay.
Okay. Commissioner Quill, Commissioner Flores? Commissioner Guerrero, or
Aye.
Chair Guerrero, excuse me.
Aye.
Commissioner Armstead? And then Commissioner Lewis, obviously.
Yes.
Okay, they're approved.
Thank you. Item number 2.
I motion to approve.
Second.
Commissioner Quill?
I'd like to abstain from that.
Okay. And Quill. And then Vice Chair Guerrero, or Armstead, sorry.
Aye.
And you would
Yes.
approve? And then Commissioner Lewis?
Yes.
Approve. Okay. Flores was?
Flores.
Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Flores. I'm so sorry. It's been a long week already. I'm sorry.
And Chair Guerrero is abstaining.
Okay.
Yes. Abstaining.
Skipped right over you, sorry.
So the minutes are approved, yes? 3 out of 5? Thank you.
Okay. And now we have item number 3.
I motion to approve.
Yeah, I'll second it.
Okay.
Okay, Commissioner Quill?
Aye.
Commissioner Flores?
Yes.
Chair Guerrero?
Yes.
Vice Chair Armstead?
Yes.
And Commissioner Lewis?
Yes.
Okay, also approved.
All right. Okay. Consent items are considered routine in nature and may be, huh? Oh, we just, okay.
We
So I
did
don't
that, Chair
need to-
Guerrero. We're at the public hearing items now.
So then I don't need to read that over then.
Correct.
Okay. Go ahead and. Okay. Public hearing items. Okay. All right. The Planning Commission will first hear a report from staff, and then the public hearing will be open. The applicant will have an opportunity to speak. Next, members of the public will be allowed to speak. Anyone in the audience wishing to speak must be sworn in and also fill out a request to speak form. The forms are located on the table near the door. When your name is called, come forward and speak into the microphone. Say and spell your name and give your address for the taped record. After all have spoken, the applicant will be allowed to respond. The public hearing will then be closed and the Planning Commission will begin deliberations and make a decision. All actions except general plan amendments and amendments to the Municipal Development Code are final action unless an appeal is filed and fee paid within 15 days to the Community Development Department. If you challenge the resultant action of the Planning Commission in court, you may be limited to raising only those issues you or someone else raised at the public hearing described in this agenda or in written correspondence delivered to the Community Development Department at or prior to the public hearing. So we can have item number 4, please.
Yes, good evening, Commissioners. Item number 4 tonight. This item was continued from the May 10th, 2022 meeting. There was a special meeting on June 4th, 2022, where the Commissioners had a chance to visit an operational site. The item is Conditional Use Permit 21-16. The applicant, Clean Energy, is requesting the approval to allow for the development, establishment, and operation of a renewable natural gas and compressed natural gas fast fuel fueling facility with time fuel parking for sustainable energy trucks, also known as green trucks. It's on a vacant parcel containing 6.36 acres located at APN 0280-091-27 within the industrial light zone. And to reiterate, we have our location map located on the corner of East Central Avenue and South Tippecanoe Avenue within the industrial light zone. Here we have our aerial map showing the light uses around the project site. Here we do have our site plan. And tonight our recommendation is that the Planning Commission adopt resolution number 2022-022, adopting the mitigated negative declaration and mitigation monitoring and reporting program in accordance with section 15074 of the California Environmental Quality Act and approving conditional use permit 21-16 based on the findings of fact and recommended on the conditions of approval. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Hereby open the public hearing for item number 4. Is there anyone wishing to speak on this item?
Yes. Here.
Michael Lawson?
Good evening, everyone. Nice to see you again because we were there on Saturday. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Got a few pictures to show everyone here. Let me get going. I got 3 minutes here. Can you hand that out to him? We were all at the site on Saturday, June 4th. Remember the noise that came up? And we did a decimal reading of that yesterday. And if you go to page, I think it's page 4, you'll see a decimal reading at that same site. It read in at 95. California Act, go to page 2, and you'll see that it's above the decimals. Remember that noise that came on that ran for 12 minutes? And they stated that they're going to have 120 trucks per day, 24 hours a day, 365 days out of the year. Look at the site plan. Look at the distance between the runway and the residence. It's 900 feet. The residents are exactly 100 feet from their pumping site. Remember the noise. I'm not worried about the explosion when the jet goes down, but remember the smell that we got. They said on Saturday that one drop of that will clear a room. Well, that's one drop every time that truck fills up. And if you live within 100 feet, I also did a little canvas today between the hours of 1 and 2. Nobody on that street on Central received this memo. Nobody. And nobody could read it because also if they got it, it was in English. And they're all Hispanic. That's a low-income housing, and if you look at one of the pages there, in the black, shows how many residents live in that area. Okay? They said there's no residents. Let's go back to what they also said, that they're on a runway, at the end of a runway, at every airport or on an airport. They have 25 airports. Not one of their sites is within 900 yards of that runway or tarmac at the end or at the beginning. They're all, either if the runway runs north and south, they're east and west. If they run east and west, they're north and south. I also spoke to the drivers yesterday at that airport. When there's more than 4 trucks, the facility shuts down. It overheats. What happens is the trucks and buses backed up. And the guy said there could be almost 100 trucks sitting there and buses and vans, and they have to wait for hours till their tech shows up out there. Remember when I talked to the driver that day? Well, there's a lot that needs to be addressed here. All right.
Anyone else wishing to speak? Okay. Did we receive any? Okay. Okay.
Chair Guerrero, would you like to ask the applicant if they have any response to the public comments?
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Greg Roche with Clean Energy, and I'd also like to introduce the folks that are with me tonight. With me are Dennis Ding, our Vice President of Engineering, our safety expert that you met on the tour, Brian Young, our project manager, and Todd Dotson, our CEQA consultant, and also available by phone if we need him is our traffic consultant. It's a pleasure being here tonight to talk to you again about this exciting project for San Bernardino. There are 3 pillars for this project. Number 1 is fighting back against climate change, reducing carbon emissions. Number 2, reducing local air pollution. And number 3 is sustainability. Those are values shared by the city of San Bernardino, and we're not alone with this. South Coast AQMD recently passed their warehouse rule, and in that rule, they're looking for more of these near zero and zero emission trucks to be deployed in the area to serve the warehouses and drive down air pollution. If anybody's interested, I have excerpts of that rule that you can see that one of the mitigation measures is deploying these clean trucks that we're talking about tonight. And we're also not alone because the city of San Bernardino itself also has a CNG station at their yard on Pershing Avenue. This is, as we've talked about, this is not new. This is proven technology that's been around for many years. And And we really appreciate the opportunity for commissioners to come out and see the operation. You were able to see firsthand vehicles of all sorts, from buses to big rig trucks to vans, safely, quickly, reliably come in and get fuel. I'll say this, I wasn't here, so I don't have a way to confirm what was alleged, but if that's the way we ran our stations, we wouldn't be in business. Regarding the sound allegations, we were all there. You were able to witness yourselves when we stood close to the equipment. It was noisy, but when we stepped 15 feet away, we could have a normal conversation like we're having here tonight. And in fact, what's missing from the comments earlier is that the technology and the systems that are being used today for these stations are far quieter. I heard mentioned 95 decibels, so let's say that's right. The equipment that we're using today is under 75 decibels. What does that mean? A normal conversation that we're having here is 60 to 70 decibels. A classroom is 85 decibels. Vacuum cleaner is louder than that. So as you step away from that equipment, the sound falls off. So sound is not going to be an issue for this property. We're actually in an industrial zoned area. The entire area is zoned industrial. We're across the street from an airport. We're adjacent to Tippecanoe Avenue, a major thoroughfare. We have a C-store and car wash adjacent to us. We have a warehouse next to us. We have Mr. Lawson's truck parking lot on the north side of us. This is not a quiet library area. This is a robust, bustling industrial area full of commerce. And that's why this really does belong here. The other comment I'll make is regarding safety. You were able to observe for yourselves how safe the operation is. And in order to get to this point, we talked about this also, that the airport had to evaluate our project for safety, for hazmat, for occupancy limits, and found it acceptable. And we filed a filing with the county to certify that that's the case. This has gone through a lot of scrutiny. You heard from Dennis Ding, our safety expert. He's the gentleman that is on the NFPA 52 board that determines safety standards for these stations. He's built hundreds around the country, and it's not just our company that's doing this, but there are thousands of these that run in America, including the one in San Bernardino. There are tens of thousands of these that run around the world, whether you're talking about Mexico, Canada, South America, Asia, Europe, all done reliably and safely. This is absolutely a safe project. It will be a great fit for the community, will not be a disturbance to people off-site, and will be an opportunity for San Bernardino to take a step forward to clean technology, technology that is the future of transportation, technology that gets rid of noisy, dirty diesel trucks and puts clean trucks on the road in their place to benefit the community. So with that, I'll happy to have our team answer any other specific questions that you may have. Thank you.
Go ahead, Commissioner Quill.
Yeah, through the chair, I have a question. What is it that creates the sound, and can sound barriers additional sound barriers be installed? Is it a pump, or what is it?
It's a compressor.
Oh, compressor.
So think of an air compressor, a large version of that. And as I said, the modern technologies already have the sound barriers built into them. You know, that's just to give you some more examples. That's 75 decibels. You know, a diesel truck's 85, louder than those compressors. A jet taking off from the airport is 140 decibels. So,
does the compressor run continuously?
It runs on demand when vehicles are fueling.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Oliver, can you remind me, did the public notification policy pass after this development process?
Yes, it did. So it actually started with new items for this meeting. So when this item was the original public hearing at the last meeting in May, that was not in effect at the time.
Got it.
Regarding the backup of trucks and other vehicles, are there going to be more pumping stations? So it's less backup or?
And again, I have no idea what the reference was to, because that's not how we operate our stations. But this station will have redundancy built into it. So it has multiple dispensers. It has multiple compressors so that there's backup. So, you know, they're designed for fault tolerance to prevent exactly what was described.
Good afternoon. I have just a couple of questions. One being, you have, what is it, 124? It's not 124 pumps or dispensers.
There will be 128 plug-in locations in the parking area.
Okay. Dispensing the...
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
How does that compare to, would we be able to say, or are we going here where we're saying this is like the largest facility that you've put together, or?
It's actually not the largest. There are larger ones operated by transit companies here in Southern California and refuse companies here in Southern California and elsewhere, not just in Southern California.
Well, but of your specific, I mean, that are directly linked to your company.
No, we have larger facilities than this.
Okay, got
Yeah,
it.
for example, just as an example, we have designed and built quite a few of the transit facilities that are in Southern California that are larger than this.
Okay. And then, and finally, I'll just say it, I was quite impressed with the safety measures that you've taken on your own. I'm concerned, though, I didn't hear any conversation about seismic safety stuff. I know that there are sensors that would pick up a leak if it was to occur. However, what we didn't get to see was where the actual metering system from your provider to where it came up out of the ground. Is that meter an underground thing? Is it in a vault that's in the ground? Where is that?
Well, why don't we do this, Dennis, or Brian, do you want to
Oh, I was
address the
hoping you
science?
would call Dennis up.
Oh, there we go.
Yes.
Good afternoon, Chairperson, board members. Regarding the question at the Ontario facility, the gas meter is actually near the railroad. And then to go underground to the facility, and you saw the gray pipe that stop up right there. So it's underground to our facility. And regarding the kind of seismic activity, every city, planning commission, building department, we go through that review with them. The storage vessels have the cross bracing that designed for the seismic activity in California. And also the compressor, each one of them has a vibration switch inside. So if they detect any vibration, abnormal vibration, it will shut down as well, the entire station.
Okay. So where it comes up out of the ground, there is a large, I think you call it's a main shutoff. It's a big box right on the.
It's the automatic valves that will shut off if any emergency button was activated, or any of the vibration switch, or any of our sensors that sends an alarm. It will shut down the station and shut out the valve and isolate the flow of gas from the station.
Now, I also saw just prior to it getting to that particular unit, there is a coupling, there's a connection
A flange?
right after the 90 bin on that pipe. If a leak was to occur before that gets to that safety shutoff, would we be solely relying on the sensors to catch the odor in the air to shut everything down, or would it shut down before the meter or right outside of the metering process?
If a, let's say, odor is detected, or let's say somebody in the area detect the smell, basically it's very similar to the natural gas feed in the residential neighborhood. The gas company, if it's upstream of that automatic valve that we installed at the station, obviously we installed right after the stub up where the gas line comes out. But if it happens to be that one flange that ahead of our shutoff valve,
Yes.
it'll be informing the SoCal Gas, and SoCal Gas will need to shut off the valve that's located at the meter, which is kind of, like I said, a little near the railroad.
So then, again, we would be totally reliant upon the sensors to pick up a leak at that one connection point, because that main shutoff isn't going to be activated at that point. It's because the leak would be before that unit.
Yeah. It's a mechanical flange, and obviously it's an ASME flange. It's designed to ASME B313, the piping code, and obviously we mentioned earlier during the trip, we have our LDAR program that we do a regular leak detection and repair throughout the stations. So if there's a leak detected by a technician, we will perform the repair ahead of need to be shut off.
Okay. I think, so what you're telling me is that, look, if a leak occurs at that first fitting, the only way to shut that off would be, now, number one, to contact the gas company. They would have to come out and shut it off at the meter. In the meanwhile, that's just escaping there.
I think like all utilities, right? When they enter your property, they'll put a shut-off electric valve or water valve or gas valves right there, so you can isolate this from property. If it happens, the leak is right in front of that shut-off valves, you do need to inform the utility to shut off. So we are following the similar procedure.
So usually, well, not usually, I don't know, but generally speaking, we have, let's say, for instance, and I know this is way, way far from the residential type of a setup, but there is a seismic shutoff valve located on residential homes. It's after the meter, but before it gets into the house. So would it not be something that you would probably look at some time to say, well, look, yeah, we do want to put a seismic shutoff valve where the meter is, because before the meter belongs to the service provider. You can't do anything with that. That's on them. I get that. But from on the service, on the load side of the meter, you know, you could say, well, you know, we're going to put I mean, I don't know how big that would be, because the seismic valves on gas meters in residences, you could hold them in your hand. I probably have to, and I think that pipe was in excess of about 10, 12 inches.
Yeah, it's I believe it's 8 or 10 inch pipe.
Yeah.
It is.
Just something to think about. Because I'm thinking that if that flange, for whatever reason, whether it's seismic activity, whether it just, you know, whatever, if a leak occurred there, it's like we would be completely reliant on the sensors in the area to pick up the methane, whatever
Yep,
it is.
the-
And at that point, the only thing that it would do is notify your central control center.
Correct.
And then now, they've got to get in, well, you're going to have to send a technician out.
Correct.
Wow, there's a lot of time there.
Well, like I said,
Yeah,
everything upstream of our station belongs to the gas utility. So we put a shut-off valve at the earliest point of service entry. So I cannot control the gas utility and how they design the gas meter. Right, Kelly?
No, I understand that. I'm just saying, yes, and you're correct. You have it at the earliest point that you could possibly have it. However, we're left pretty vulnerable should there be a break in the line or whatever at that first connection
One thing
point.
that, if there's something that you're concerned about, one thing that we can consider for this location, for this project,
Yes.
is have that flange welded.
So that there's no,
Mechanical connections. It'll be a welded connection. So the isolated valve will be welded to the pipes coming up. That helps ease some of your concern right there.
okay. That's a thought, huh? Yeah.
The socket weld, we can just weld it up.
Yeah.
Generally, it's a mechanical flange, but if
And
there's-
I don't know if you've ever had a situation where you had to notify your service provider. Are they on some type of a different, I mean, you know, if I call a gas company, I was going to take them, they'll get there when they get there.
no, actually, they're
But
pretty
in
quick.
this situation, they're going to just probably dispatch somebody really quickly.
Yeah, I think SoCal Gas actually have a hotline. If anybody smell gas and report, they will come actually pretty quick to survey.
All right. Thank you, Dennis. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, are there staff or technicians on site?
We have a crew of 43 technicians that cover the general area. We're actually hiring 2 more in this area. And so they come and visit the station regularly for operations and maintenance. They're not physically housed at the site, but they're on site often during the week. In addition to that, we have our 24/7 remote operations center with security cameras that they can view and instrumentation on the equipment so that they know exactly what's going on with the facility.
Okay, and then hours of operation?
It's open up around the clock.
So 24/7?
Yes.
Okay. And when you say within the area, the jurisdiction, like how many miles apart?
Oh, they could be literally down the street almost from here as they service this station and other stations in the area.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Lewis?
I always got to have one more. So, and you may know, or Dennis can answer this. With the volume of fueling that'll be going on at the San Bernardino airport there, does that require the supply pipe into your system to be larger than the one we saw?
I believe this one will have is it a 4-inch line coming in, Brian? 6-inch line?
6-inch.
It's about the same.
The same. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else wishing to speak? No? We'll go ahead and close the public hearing.
Thank you.
Thank you. And may I entertain a motion for item number 4?
I motion to approve item number 4.
Second that.
Call for the vote.
Okay, Commissioner Quill?
Aye.
And then Commissioner Flores?
Yes.
Commissioner Guerrero?
Aye.
And then Commissioner Armstead?
Yes.
And Commissioner Lewis?
Yes.
Okay, it's approved.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you. All right, and we'll go ahead and proceed on to item number 6. Staff report, please.
Is it all connected? There we go. All right, sorry, apologies. Thank you, Chair. Item number 6 this evening is conditional use permit 22-03. This is a proposed restaurant with drive-through. It's located at 2536 East Highland Avenue. That's on the northeast corner of Highland and Eucalyptus Drive. Property is just over a half an acre in size, one parcel, and it's currently zoned Commercial General 1. This is an aerial of the property. It is currently developed with an old auto repair business that would be demolished as part of this proposal. The zoning, as mentioned, is CG1, as it is all along Highland, with limited some single-family just behind the shopping center to the north of the property, just at the top edge of the image. As mentioned, this is just a single restaurant with drive-through. It's for a proposed Starbucks. It's a smaller drive-through only facility, so no interior. It would have just a walk-up window and then the single drive-through pickup. Because it is just a takeout without any sit-down, it does have limited parking. It does require 6 spaces, and they've provided 8. And then there would be driveways accessing the site both off of Highland Avenue and Eucalyptus Drive on the west side of the property. Here's the existing site. As mentioned, it is still currently developed with the existing auto repair business that would be demolished as part of this. The site plan shows an entry on the kind of southeast side along Highland Avenue, and then the other entry along Eucalyptus, all the way on the northwest corner of the property. It has a kind of a dual drive-through for ordering purposes that then combines just to the single pickup lane on the south side of the building fronting Highland, with the parking located on the main drive on the east end of the property. The proposed elevations for the unit are a little more contemporary in nature. The ones that you're looking at specifically this evening are those that would be fronting the street itself. So you see the image on the left-hand side has that pickup window, and then that would be fronting Highland Avenue directly, and then the portion on the right-hand side would be the east image. So it's actually interior to the site. That would be where the walk-up window is. And then the proposed landscaping plan, it is a smaller property, so all the landscaping that they have provided is more focused just along the street frontage. You can see kind of an enhanced corner with kind of a concave little design there, buffering the drive-through from the street and from the intersection itself, with additional landscaping along the Eucalyptus frontage and then along Highland to help screen some of the pickup window, and then limited landscaping within the parking area just to buffer some of the spaces from the adjacent property. And with that, our recommendation this evening is to adopt Resolution 2022-030. It would find the project categorically exempt as a small structure under CEQA, and then approve CUP 2203 based off the findings and subject to the recommended conditions. One note I do want to make, there's a replacement copy of the resolution that was provided at the beginning of the meeting this evening. There were 2 items, just omissions on my part in preparing it, both in findings 5 and 6, which should be on page 4 and 5 of the resolution. There was just reference to a subsequent variance application. That was an error as included in the reso. That is not part of the proposal in front of you. This project is fully compliant and does not require any variances. Thank you.
Okay, anyone wishing to speak on this item? We'll open the public hearing. Okay. No. Okay. If not, we'll go ahead and close. Is the applicant here?
We do have a representative from the applicant.
Okay, does the applicant want to come up and speak, say anything?
Good evening, members of the Planning Commission. Brad Robertson with Site Tech, Civil Engineering and Site Planning. Available for any questions you may have.
Yes, thank you. Mr. Robinson, typically or characteristically with Starbucks in our community, I don't believe we've given enough thought to the lines that develop outside of these. So it looks like this traffic will be entering on, what is it, Eucalyptus?
Yes, sir. We would actually bring the traffic in on Eucalyptus, but also coming in off of Highland Avenue, you could make a right-hand turn into the driveway.
Okay. How many cars will this allow for in the parking or in the drive-through?
Well, in this queue, if you were to take, say, 20 feet, you would average about 14 to 16, depending on the size of the cars.
Yeah, if I may, Commissioner, it is hard to see on the projection just because they're a little lighter on the image. It is also shown on the copies that were included with the packet. Currently, as proposed, going back all the way to the entry of the dual drive-through, there's 15 cars shown for capacity. And additionally, there is, the way it has been designed, that was something that we looked at, and that other drive kind of on Eucalyptus would allow, if it was to overflow that, the traffic to kind of queue up in that area without obstructing either the formal entrance to the drive-through, the exit, or the parking spaces themselves.
Okay, so that's been taken into consideration.
Yes.
Based upon what the existing Starbucks, some of the issues we have in our community on that.
That's correct, yes.
Yeah. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
It looks like there's a parking lot, existing parking outside of this project area with the rest of the development.
Mm-hmm.
Has there been any discussion with those property owners about potential parking there, which will probably happen?
There wasn't anything needed for reciprocal parking other than what is provided on the site. On the plan, and it does get cut off here, I don't know if the cursor will look, there's an existing drive connection right up along the north, just in off the driveway from Eucalyptus. That is being maintained, so it would still have connectivity with the rest of the center. But because the property is just a drive-through use only, with just that limited pickup window, it didn't need the additional parking as it's designed, because you wouldn't have the customers there waiting, going inside, or sitting like you may in more kind of the cafe setup they've had.
Got it. Thank you.
Since there's already quite a bit of traffic because of the casino on Highland, is there going to be a dedicated turning lane?
That was not required through the traffic analysis that was done for the project. It didn't warrant any kind of queuing along the street or separate entrance for the property.
Is there room for it?
Did we have Alex here?
Alex is over here.
Oh, there he is, hiding. I don't believe there's any additional lanes on there. As it is, the street just west of this, I believe the curb alignment is a little bit inward along Highland. You can see there's a slight jog just on the lower right corner of the plan where they would actually have to be widening it just slightly to meet the city's design for that stretch. So there wouldn't be any additional space for a dedicated turn lane.
Okay. Is this the largest facility that we could have there?
I think it's pretty close to, without shortening the drive-through. I mean, as it's designed, they are exceeding what our code requires, but as noted, we do know that our code doesn't always reflect specific users.
Mm-hmm.
So without shrinking that, this is about as much as they could max out on the facility. But this is typical. We don't have a lot of their drive-through only properties in the city, but from the other ones that they've done, this is kind of the typical size that they fit. It's a pretty kind of format, kind of floor plan that they've come up with.
Okay. Thank you. Commissioner?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for this project here. I'm a little bit concerned. I see the driveway on the eucalyptus side up near the top left of the, that's the driveway coming in?
Yes, just right along here, that's one of the drives coming in right
Is that
here.
a shared driveway? Does the other businesses also use that?
So the center to the north, like I said, there is an opening here that's existing with the current development, and they are going to maintain that. But separately, there's another driveway there's the drive aisle that sits right here. Let me jump back to the other image that sort of shows it. It is a little bit small, but they have the other driveway here, the drive aisle that services the multi-tenant center, and they do have a separate drive approach here. So they're kind of near each other on the same side of the street, but they don't actually share the access from Eucalyptus itself.
And so they come in off of Eucalyptus. Can you go back to the other drawing there?
Yes, of course.
So coming in off of Eucalyptus, that's a pretty sharp U-turn there to get into the lane there, isn't it?
It is, but it was something, the templates for that were looked at as part of their on-site circulation.
Okay.
For the passenger vehicles, that it's a doable maneuver.
And then they merge into one lane and exit out on the...
Yeah. They would be able to come in here. There's 2 lanes that they would be able to queue in to order. The dual ordering boards along the western side of the property, and then after that they would merge down to the single pickup. And then exit here, and depending on the way they were trying to maneuver, they could come out to Highland. If they desired, they'd be able to go back up around, come to Eucalyptus, possibly for different movements.
And I know you've looked at, traffic impacts and things. Is that going to be maybe right turn only, or are we going to have cars sitting in the driveway waiting 5 minutes to turn left?
There were not any restrictions for
None.
movement that were provided by Public Works as part of the review. That the project didn't generate enough traffic to warrant that.
Starbucks. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Through the chair. Commissioner brings up a very good point. With the traffic there, could there be a restriction applied to that to where right-hand turns only?
Are you referring to the driveway specifically
Exiting
on
out
Highland?
Avenue?
I would,
We will look into this one
yeah.
within the plan, and we will determine if that is something that is reasonable.
Yeah, because I know there's issues trying to make a left-hand turn coming out of Two Guys over there.
Yes, that I've heard about that before, but
Yeah.
again, our traffic impact studies that happened to this project that my staff have completed does not show any impact, but that does not could be because there's a Starbucks we have here a second that have issues. But we will make sure that this, the queuing on the property itself, it seems like it's fit for whatever the traffic is.
Yeah, I think I'd take a close look at that because I think it will work out real well. Looks like a real clean project, and I commend you for cleaning up the taco vendors. What's the hours of operation?
That would be standard Starbucks hours, and I honestly couldn't tell you that right now. I'm sure it's not 24 hours, but
Okay.
each site is a different, they have a different model, but
Thank you.
yeah, sorry I couldn't answer that question.
If I may, Commissioners, I know that there's concerns about the movements out of the center. If you feel inclined, you could always add that condition if that's something that you would feel appropriate for your approval. Just wanted to mention that as well.
One other question or comment. I know the one on 2nd Street has sort of a second waiting lane after you order. Was that something?
I'm not sure what you're referring to.
So when you're at the window, when you pick up your drink, that Starbucks location has a secondary lane.
Oh, okay. I know some facilities. I know with other users, they may have like kind of a hashed, like striped area
where a car could pull around. That wasn't something that was considered for this one. And I would say because of the size of the site, I don't think it would really be feasible because we wouldn't be able to have that, without eliminating pretty much all the landscaping along Highland and that setback. Something like that wouldn't really fit here.
Got it. Thank you.
If you wanted to add that condition when you make, if you were inclined to make a motion, I'd like to make a motion to approve and add a condition requiring a restricted to right-hand turn only for the exit.
Just restricting to right in, right out at the driveway along Highland Avenue. Yeah.
I'll make the motion to approve with the condition that we include a right turn only lane. Okay.
Right-hand exit only.
Right-hand exit only lane. Okay.
That one.
I'll second it. Yeah.
Chair Guerrero, before you do that, would you like to ask the applicant if the applicant agrees to that condition?
That condition is acceptable. I don't see anyone being able to pull out and make a left turn there.
I think that's reasonable
It would,
as well.
Yeah, it's reasonable. Thank you.
We'll call for the vote.
Commissioner Quill? Commissioner Flores? Chair Guerrero? Vice Chair Armstead? And Commissioner Lewis?
Yes.
Okay, it's approved with the condition.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Nice evening.
Lewis.
Jessica, can you turn off that mic, please? Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to item number 7.
Yes, Commissioners. Item number 7, the applicant. No, we're on 7. That's item number. Item number 7 is development code amendment, zoning map amendment 20-05, and development permit type D 20-03 is for the property located at 791 South Waterman Avenue. The applicant is still, if you recall, this was on the last agenda. The applicant was looking to resolve some items external to his project that had not yet been resolved. So the applicant has requested, his staff is asking the commission to consider continuing this item to the next meeting of July the 12th, please. And you might want to open the public hearing, see if there's anyone that has comments, please.
Okay, thank you. And we'll open up the public hearing for item number 7. Is there anyone wishing to speak on this item?
Treasurer.
Okay.
Good evening. So for item 7, I think my major concern is more warehousing, which means more trucks up and down Waterman Avenue. And now, one of the historic issues we find is the lack of impact fees that carry us into the future of being able to maintain the roads and the infrastructure with this additional heavy trucking that we're adding to the city, along with any sustainable plan for what we're going to do with these warehouses when it's no longer part of the industry that's driving the current supply chain. So as you're moving this forward, I want to make sure that, one, we're looking at the roads and where these trucks are allowed to go, along with how much these warehousings who are making millions and millions of dollars a year are going to pay to maintain what they are destroying with the heavy weights that they're producing in our city daily and weekly. So that's my major concern for number 7. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak on this item? Okay, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing for item number 7. And since it's being continued, do we need to do anything further?
We may entertain a motion to continue to the July 12th meeting, please.
Okay.
I'll second it. The motion to continue to July 12th.
Commissioner Quill, Commissioner Flores, Chair Guerrero, Vice Chair Armstead, and then Commissioner Lewis. Okay, so it's continued.
All right, thank you. We'll go ahead and move on to item number 8. Staff report, please.
Yes, Madam Chair and fellow commissioners, item number 8 is Development Code Amendment, Zoning Map Amendment 21-03, and Development Permit Type D 21-15. Development Code Amendment, Zoning Map Amendment 21-3, it's a request to change the existing zoning district classification of a parcel containing approximately 3.94 acres from commercial general to industrial heavy. And then Development Permit D 21-15 is a request for the development and establishment of a truck terminal facility containing approximately 52,160 square feet. Project site is located at 5770 North Industrial Parkway. And the current zoning of the properties, as you'll see on this slide, is commercial general on the northern portion, that's in the red area of the project site, and then industrial heavy, which would be this other parcel on the southern portion of the site, illustrated in this gray tone color. This is the aerial map that shows the project site location. As I had indicated earlier, the project site does consist of 2 separate parcels, and as conditioned, a lot merger, if this item does move forward, would merge the 2 parcels together, along with the request for the zoning map amendment to change that northern half of the site from commercial general to industrial heavy. These are photographs of the site that were taken as of today. The top photograph shows the existing building that's located on the southern portion of the project site. And then the photograph that I try to kind of merge together, since it's a very lengthy site, does show the northern portion of the site that's currently vacant off of Industrial Parkway looking west. And then you can see the existing building on the southern portion of the site just on the left side of that photograph. This is a view of the site that was taken from Palm Avenue looking south onto the project site. So you can see in the foreground the actual vacant site and then the existing building towards the background. And then you have Industrial Parkway just to the left side of that photograph. As part of the analysis, this is a request for the 52,160 square foot truck terminal facility. Access to the site is being provided off of North Industrial Parkway. There are 2 driveways that are being proposed. One of them is the main driveway, which is just kind of like on the southeasterly portion of the site. That would be the primary access to the site. That driveway in itself would be 50 feet wide. And then they also are proposing a secondary driveway, which would be just to the north of that, and that driveway would be 30 feet in width. The project site is required to provide a total of 71 parking spaces, and 73 parking spaces are being provided. 55 of those are standard parking spaces, and then there are 18 electric vehicle, clean air, and carpool parking spaces. The site will also provide a total of 141 trailer parking stalls that are located throughout the project site around the actual building. And then there's also landscaping that's being proposed throughout the project site that would be to the north and east of the development. So this is the site plan that shows the actual proposed truck terminal facility that would be towards the center of the site plan. You'll see Industrial Parkway just to the east, and then Palm Avenue to the north. And you can see that the truck terminal building will have a total of 100 dock doors. That's what you see on the slide before you, which is kind of like the longer rectangular portion of that drawing. And then you do have a office building on the southern portion of that building that will serve the building. And all of its required vehicle parking will be parked just south of the actual building. This is a rendering, the proposed floor plan that shows the office area along with the truck terminal component of the building. These are the renderings of the site, which the top photograph shows the view of the proposed building looking kind of in a northwest direction, which shows the office building component. The bottom rendering on the right-hand side would show what this facility would look like off of Industrial Parkway. The building in itself would be single-story, about 36 feet in height. It is a concrete tilt-up design that will use a variation of different color schemes in a white, light gray, and green tone colors. With that, it is staff's recommendation that the Planning Commission adopt Resolution 2022-024, forwarding a recommendation to the Mayor and City Council for the adoption of the Mitigated Negative Declaration for Development Code Amendment Zoning Map Amendment 21-03 and Development Permit Type D 2115 in accordance with Section 15074 of the Public Resource Code, and direct the Planning Commission Secretary to prepare and file with the Clerk of the County of San Bernardino a notice of determination as provided under Public Code Section 21152 and California Code Regulations Title 14. In addition to that, also the recommendation is for the Planning Commission to make the recommendation to adopt the Mitigation Monitoring and Reporting Program for the Development Code Amendment, which is 2103, and Development Permit Type 2115, and adopt Development Code Amendment Zoning Map Amendment 21-03 and Development Permit 21-15 based on the findings of fact and subject to the recommendations of approval. That concludes my presentation. We also have the applicant and his project team that will be also presenting a small presentation on their behalf.
Harold, would you kindly put the slide up for the aerial, please?
Sure.
Perfect, thank you. So as Harold mentioned, there was an extensive mitigated negative declaration prepared for the project related to the CEQA analysis. One of those areas was as it relates to traffic and circulation. I did want to point out that as part of the recommendations from the traffic study and the CEQA analysis, there's a list of traffic conditions or requirements. And if I may, there's a couple that I wanted you to be aware of. You may, if you're looking at the slide here on the upper portion, you see those purple lines. Kind of that property up there. If you recall, that's where the travel center is going in. The truck stop that was approved last year sometime. As part of that project, it was conditioned to put a new traffic signal at Industrial Parkway and Palm Avenue. That is an opening day condition, so they've been conditioned to install that signal immediately. So this project has been conditioned to contribute their fair share for the payment of that signal. Some other improvements that went as part of that travel center project was up at the signal that's up on Kendall. That right in that area. There's a signal there. There's some improvements that are going to be done at that intersection, and there's also some requirements to reset the computers for the signalization for the light queuing, if I may, and also some requirements to restripe underneath the underpass to allow. Right now, if you're coming from I'll say from the Vertimont area, there isn't a designated left turn lane to get onto the freeway. So the travel center project was conditioned to put restripe, so there's a turn lane directly onto the freeway and another lane that will drive straight through, or two lanes that will drive straight through. And so again, this project is conditioned to contribute towards those improvements. So I just wanted to mention those conditions that were analyzed as part of the project. Thank you.
And just to add to Oliver's comment, those conditions would be condition number 35, letter G and H as part of your packet.
Open up the public hearing for item number 8. Anyone wishing to speak on this item? Okay.
We do have the project applicant.
The applicant is here as well.
That is correct, and they also would like to provide a small presentation on their behalf.
Okay.
If the applicant has a presentation, let's allow them to present first, and then we'll do public comment.
Okay.
Can
Thank
we,
you.
can we, can we do the public comment first? Because I have to go.
No,
It's
we'll
a
have
lot
to do
quicker.
the applicant's presentation first. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you, Jeremy Kraut, applicant's representative, here to do a brief presentation and answer any questions. Also have the applicant here and CEQA preparer in the audience as well. And I just want to first thank the Commission for your time and consideration of the project, and also to the staff who's you have a staff that has a lot of projects that they're processing and a lot of work going on, and I just want to say they've really been great to work with. They put a lot of time and effort into every project and thoughtfulness. So with that, I'll just go through a brief presentation. I think that just the applicant itself is Dado Properties. They've been working in the related field for over 50 years. They also have a foundation, the Rod Dado Foundation, who's working with community members who give back to engage the communities and work that they do. So like they participate in scholarships and give scholarships to youth, underprivileged youth, to help them really achieve their goals and their dreams relative to both academic and sports-oriented areas. And as part of that, they've identified San Bernardino because of the work they do in this area as a key area they want to contribute. They worked with a number of organizations, including the Oak Grove Center, and they provided a letter of support just to thank the applicant for the effort they've worked with them on, not just in this project, but in the area for some time. So I'm happy to distribute these at some point during the presentation. Also, just as part of the overall effort, from right at the beginning over a year ago, they've been working with the community in the efforts to let the community know about the applicant, let them know what the intentions are in the community, chances to give feedback and dialogue about what they do and how they can help with the community in various ways. So a number of the community organizations they've talked with are on the screen, and events that they participated in. And so they both attended these, gave a chance to talk with the community, engage with them, and let them have a chance to understand what the company is about. Mentioned the Oak Grove Center as one of those areas where they did have the participation at event and received a letter of support. Went through the project site already, and one thing just to really note in the site itself, it is a highly constrained site, especially on the portion that's undeveloped. And I'll note that obviously there's an existing pallet manufacturer on the kind of the southerly or southeasterly portion of the site, but what's maybe not as evident in a 2D kind of plan view screen is that the northerly portion of the site is depressed lower down from the streets next to it, the Palm and Industrial, and there's a limited access along the frontage within a access easement that follows around the site to get to the rail line. So the reason it hasn't, in our estimation, the reason it hasn't developed for commercial is because of the constraints that are on the site. The visibility is really limited from the surrounding streets. It's also, the freeway is on the other side of existing commercial and industrial use, so the visibility that's really mandatory in order for commercial uses to occur and thrive is not there. On the back side of the site is the rail, so really the site doesn't have the visibility that why commercial would make sense in this location. So in recognizing that and why it hasn't been developed, the applicant is proposing the change in use, again, because commercial is not a viable use there. Relative to industrial use, why the proposal is for the proposed terminal warehouse use is because obviously with this area, if you were going to propose and develop this type of use, this is the area to do it. You're west of the freeway or southerly westerly of the freeway. And development like this and trucks oriented related to this use would not be going through sensitive use areas. They'd be going straight to the freeway in order to get on to transfer goods. That's why a lot of these industrial uses have been built in the area. My majority of the site was zoned and designated for industrial use. We went through some of the slides about the elevations and the plans. I just wanted to point out in this that, we heard loud and clear from your staff and from other city officials the importance of design. Even though the site is set back and not really visible from the area, the importance was really hammered home to include that quality design in it, and that's what we attempted to really dress up the areas, especially that are visible from the roadways. On the access point, I mentioned that this somewhat shows the constraints on the site. There's an existing access that provides access down to the rail line. So there is a buffer that's created along Industrial Parkway and an emergency access that accesses off that northerly portion of the site. Primary access is, again, further east, closest to all the other industrial uses there. As far as design features, DITO is committed to sustainable features in all their projects. They go above and beyond the requirements, so they really strive for a LEED Silver equivalent design. But what that means is there are solar panels that are installed. They really look for any green sustainable features that they can incorporate into the building and work with the tenant to identify those up front so that the building can include those. So like the EV charging stations and others that are really needed to make the building a low energy user. They also recognize the need for employee amenities, so they have that built into the design as well along that frontage. I mentioned some of the other, these are, again, just the elements related to that. They do look at screening, the screen walls, the idle restrictions are mandatory, but they obviously take that very seriously because that's a state mandate, as well as the drought-tolerant landscaping and the panels and EV charging, like I mentioned. In terms of the benefits, the economic benefits, the jobs-oriented area of it that they anticipate for this type of building and the tenant that would go in there, about 135 jobs permanently would be there. Obviously, on the construction side, it is a fairly intensive construction effort that would have 127 construction jobs, and the types of jobs that are coming out of it that we're seeing, it's above 25 an hour for the type of people that would be working here. Happy to answer any other questions, but I know you have committee members that want to speak, and happy to follow that if that would be preferred.
Should we open up public comment?
Do we? Okay. We'll go ahead and open up public comment.
So my concern in now hearing this presentation is that the people who live directly across the freeway are not being taken into consideration. One of the largest groups that were vocal was against the travel center in the beginning that's already coming across the street because of the limited access. And it's great to talk about freeway onways and entrances and restriping, but the truth is it's the overburdening of trucks and cars, not to mention that there are 4 existing earthquake fault lines right across the freeway. It's a huge fire hazard. There's only one way in and one way out. Compound that with additional hundreds and hundreds of trucks every day. There are people's lives at stake. And I get it, across the street you don't really have to take that into consideration because it doesn't fall within the boundary lines of having to notify the public. But the truth is we just built a whole new housing development right across the freeway. There's 96 new homes and however many people and families are coming into that. These warehouses are being built in and around communities. Residents who live here, who have to breathe this stuff in, who have to look at how the future of their neighborhoods and their communities are going to be shaped. Because there's nothing more thrilling than someone telling, kids that are going to Cal State, look at all the warehouse jobs we're creating for you. Look, you could go be a trucker too. We have to take more, especially with the expansion of these big lots, into future consideration of housing and development. While Cajon and Industrial Parkway is a good spot for types of warehousing, it's not everything. And we need to look further and broader into what we're going to be as a community, because this is not the end-all be-all of development. And so how are you going to explain not being able to get off the freeway in the long truck lines? How are you going to be able to explain the World Series that comes with the kids who play baseball when we have the soccer fields filled every weekend and you're talking 24/7 of big trucks? The weight, the impact, again, the impact to the streets, because they don't just get on and off the freeway. They go down Hallway Parkway, Hallmark Parkway. They go up and down Kendall. You have people that are literally on the verge of moving out of their homes because these trucks are destroying from all the impact on their streets. They're parking in residential neighborhoods. Like, there's a lot more to it than just green and white aesthetics. It is, what are we going to do with the people across the street that have to live and breathe it? And when you don't live here, it's easy to make such general assessments. But the community was not notified of this because they don't live within your boundary. And I think that needs to be taken in consideration in how you really move forward with these plans of what's going to affect us as a total. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak on this item?
Members of the Commission, Ray Allard, Allard Engineering, representing the landowner to the south of this, who's also an industrial use. Previously, we had voiced an objection to the project. I think it was on the record at the last meeting, but I'm here tonight to remove any and all objections we have. Feel it's a great project, a good addition to the neighborhood, and there was an agreement reached between the neighboring properties, and we expect that agreement to be quickly consummated. I'd really like to thank the staff here and the developers for how quickly that this got resolved.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay. The applicant have anything to add? No? No.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Jeremy Crowd again. I appreciate the speaker's comments and the last speaker with the neighboring use. We've been working with them to resolve those concerns, hence the resolution of the issue that they raised, which is really just about the access coordination. And then as far as the first speaker's comments, I think that's exactly the analysis that was done to look at adjacent uses, and the consideration for this type of location was really critical to thinking about a design or a project like this. We don't want to look for areas that are up against residential, and really the traffic circulation is a key one to this site because of the way that trucks and vehicles to the site would come off and go straight to this location. There is no need to go elsewhere. I think that was a key element to why this project makes sense from a design location standpoint as well. So, but happy to answer any other questions you might have, and that's it. Happy to be here. Thank you.
Through the chair, I have a question probably to staff. When you authorize a project like this and they are picking up a portion of the improvements that are required, and another developer is doing part of those improvements, is there a condition that the improvements are completed? If one project isn't finished, I mean, who handles the improvements that are going to go in? And are they completed prior to occupancy of one of the two tenants?
So the travel center, which I mirrored the conditions that they had, that's an opening day condition for them. So the signals have to go in, or the improvements have to be done before they get their certificate of occupancy. This would contribute towards this, and I don't know if there's a fallback condition, Alex, or that we need to add that that would say, well, what if this project were to go before the travel center, but the travel center has their plans in their construction drawings in plan check already. And so they are, barring something drastic, my guess is that they're going to be well underway before this gets started.
I would assume also, but I would like to have some assurance that those conditions are going to be taken care of prior to or at occupancy permit for either party. So I don't know how
So
that.
from Public Works perspective, Public Works will not sign on occupancy of any business or any development unless all the conditions. And one of the conditions, as Oliver stated, that the signal light need to be signal light and verification. The signal light is going to be happening as part of this project. The occupancy certificate until all these improvements are. That's what usually an assurance that is. And also, we ask the developer to submit a bond. So in case that did not happen, the bond will pay for all of these improvements. But it's not only for the street, it's not only for the traffic signal, but for any street work, any curb, gutter, sidewalk. We calculate all of that and we ask for a bond to be submitted as part of the, just to make sure it will happen.
Okay, so when developers are sharing the responsibility?
That is an agreement between the developers, and
Okay.
then we will see which one is going to be the one that is building it and conditioned to that, yes.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Commissioner Forrest?
I share the same concerns about the exit on Palm Avenue. I live on Kendall. Deal with a lot of truck traffic, and the way that exit was designed, to me, feels like it was designed, well, for a smaller community back in the 70s, 80s. Has Caltrans indicated any improvement or addition to exits on the 215?
So during the public notification period of the environmental document, notices were sent out to all our agencies, including Caltrans. No comments were received on this item.
Okay. My comments.
I have a couple of things. First, this is a speculative, another speculative warehouse, correct? You don't have a designated tenant. That's what I read. Am I correct?
That is correct.
Okay. My second question to staff is how many warehouses unoccupied do we already have in the city? Because this is another one. That's a question to staff. I know we have quite a few.
I don't know that we have that that statistic of existing. You said existing vacant?
Existing warehouses that are unoccupied.
I don't know that we have that statistic at this point.
Okay, that's one. Then also, this will have a over 49,000 square foot warehouse with 51 loading docks and 100 dock doors. So that tells me it's about how many trucks a day? More than 50? Okay. I'm asking the same questions the other commissioner stated. We have a lot of traffic for really a on-ramp that's over capacity now. We have a large housing development going in there. We already have homes. We have a college that has a lot of traffic from our students. It's impacting this one off-ramp. We have, like I said, existing homes. How are we, and then we also have FedEx and other warehouses already putting trucks on this road. So I went by there today to look at it. I had 3 trucks in front of me. I'm in the middle, 2 trucks behind me. And that's 11:30. So how much worse is it going to get? That's what I experienced today. We already have the travel center, and I believe that was going to generate between 40 and 60 trucks a day. I know it was quite a few. So we're doing the travel center and this, so that's over 100 additional trucks a day. I'm not understanding how this one little off-ramp is going to be able to handle that. And me as a individual and our students, how are we going to have access when we have 100 trucks a day going to the same off-ramp? I need help understanding that. That's my comment, but you can always educate me.
I'm not sure if there's a, I guess my response is, so we have the Environmental Quality Act, which requires a number of analysis, traffic study being one, analyzes traffic and circulation. So as the traffic studies prepared, so you've heard of the terms mitigated negative declaration, which was done for this, and in some cases you've heard environmental impact report. Okay, and so if you do your analysis, we'll take traffic as an example. That's the topic for the moment. So the traffic engineers, they do their studies, they do their analysis, and they come up with mitigation measures to offset whatever those impacts may be. Okay, so there's a carrying capacity in all the types of impacts: noise, air quality, traffic, and such. If you reach a level where it cannot be mitigated, in other words, the traffic study concluded in this particular case that the improvements that were recommended through the conditions, that if the project does those and implements those, along with the other improvements that are being conditioned around it, that it addresses the traffic to a level of less than significant. If there's a situation where it cannot be mitigated by the standards, then you have to adopt statement of overriding considerations, and when you reach that point, that's when it requires an environmental impact report. And so when we do our analysis and when it's reviewed, we go through the technical studies, and we had a third party that was reviewed. It was not just staff, so we had specialists, CEQA consultant reviewing this, and so there's a determination, well, you know what, it can be mitigated, therefore we have the mitigated negative declaration. We have not seen situations yet, as odd as it may sound, where the traffic was beyond being able to be mitigated. And so, based on our traffic, our street systems are what they are. But in the traffic engineering world, the freeway locations and our off ramps and the improvements that are being done in and around at this time are sufficient to accommodate our expected growth and our growth that we're experiencing now. And so we all sit in traffic, we all wait for the light, but we're going by manuals and technical data. I will say that being said, this still is a discretionary action, just like all other items that are in front of you. Earlier when you said, well, the traffic study did not require a right-hand turn lane only for the Starbucks, but you have the discretion to add that, because if you have that concern. And so I don't know if that answers your question, but I just wanted to share with you kind of what the analysis that goes into the project. And it's up to you to decide whether that's acceptable or not.
Okay, then I still have another concern. Like I said, I was between 3 trucks and 2 trucks, smelling diesel. Now, we already have a high truck traffic in the area. Between the travel center and this one, it'll be over 100 trucks a day. We've got Little League up the street. We're trying to attract people and attract businesses to San Bernardino, and attracting them with bad air quality because we're concentrating in this one area is not helping the city attract the other businesses that we would like to do. Sitting behind those trucks did not smell good. And, we're looking at how many people, we have a school not too far away, and I realize this is an industrial area because we have the FedEx and we have the other warehouses. But now we're compounding it deeply with basically a truck station and the travel center. That's a whole lot of extra trucks, a whole lot of extra pollution that we citizens are going to have to deal with. I don't know if the study addresses that, but I know smelling it today wasn't fun.
Oh, yes, I'd like to say something. I want to know if you've, that building that you're talking about putting there, that's just, I mean, it's just straight cross-dock warehouse, yes? There's not like it's going to be stuff stored there. It's moving from maybe vendor to stuff's going to be constantly moving across that dock, right?
I believe that is correct, and we do have the applicant that could maybe elaborate a little bit further on that, if you'd like.
Well, so then my question would be, and I know Oliver mentioned that he didn't have specifics on non-op warehouses in the city of San Bernardino. I do. We're currently at 88% occupancy. That means 12% of the warehouses in San Bernardino are not doing anything. They're just buildings sitting there. So my question would be to the gentleman is, have you looked at other buildings, locations that already exist to facilitate your desire to do business here in San Bernardino? That would be a question I would love to know.
Thank you. Jeremy Crowd again. So as far as these, it is a different use than other ones that are out there, so that hence there's a desire. So they've done market analysis to see, is this the right area and the right type of use, the type of investment they're putting into this area in the millions. They definitely wouldn't be doing this with the anticipation of vacancy. I know that could be probably said about the 12% as well. And we don't know obviously the answer or the reason why the 12% are vacant. There might be in leasing, we just don't know situation there. But this is a more unique use, and they work best right next to freeways to make the most sense from a access standpoint. Again, keep trucks off the main streets. That's why again, the location was planned. But of the other uses that are out there, they're just not this type, and nor do they think that there'd be a problem to find a tenant for this location. So that in the newer the buildings, even if some of them have been built in the last number of years, there's always new requirements that are coming in place, new green standards. The last green code was relatively recent, so a lot of the companies or corporations that are filling these uses are looking for the highest green standards in place, so that when they do, they meet their own sustainability goals. So that's part of the reason that they look for newer spaces as much as possible in these locations. I don't know if that answered the question about the...
Yeah, so you haven't looked at other...
In other words, they've looked at them, but they don't meet the need of this type of use.
This that type of use.
Because it's just different.
Can you put up the picture, the aerial of that again, please? Real quick there. Yeah. So I see your project site there in the red. And then, is that not a warehouse right there next to it? Which would be, I guess, to the north of it?
The large one here?
Yeah.
Yes, that is a warehouse use.
And then this is another one here at just east of it, I would say.
This one?
Yeah.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what that is down there.
It's also a warehouse.
It's also a warehouse.
Yeah. These are all zoned and designated for those uses. Yeah, and being on the rail line, again, that that's why, so when cities do the general plan designations, they look for, again, access to certain uses, proximity to certain uses, and when you're adjacent to freeways and rail lines, that's why cities tend to, and counties tend to designate them for industrial uses.
Right. And this cross-dock warehouse would operate pretty much 24/7?
The analysis that was completed for the building was assuming 24/7, but some tenants don't have that need or desire. But for purposes of analyzing the worst case scenario, the analysis did assume that in this location. And looking at, again, there's an existing pallet manufacturer there, and so Commissioner Armstrong, for the questions that you were raising, there is an existing level of trucks and trips associated with that existing use, and so we looked at the comparison of the uses there. And as far as trips, in the document it talks about the increase to the trips. There is an increase to trips associated with the site today, but importantly there is trips associated with the existing use there now.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
When I read this, it said speculative building. So speculative to me means you don't have a tenant. So you don't know what your next tenant, you keep saying that it's going to meet the specifications, but specifications for who if this is speculative? I'm confused.
Yeah, so when you do speculative buildings like this, it's same with commercial space, same with office buildings. If you don't know the user in there, there's a number of steps that you would go through as a builder or developer of a site. You would talk to the real estate market brokers who are talking to tenants on a regular basis to understand their needs, and you try to understand the most intensive needs. So if they need the most, a sustainable building, design the building towards that, because that'll cover as many people as possible. If they need a certain height of the building or a certain type of access, all those are fed in from interviews with brokers and potential tenants. And that, in a company like Dedeaux, that's what they do on a regular basis. So they accumulate that information, and that goes into a design that's proposed. So they have so much data because they talk with so many people like that, talk with tenants, and that goes into, oh, well, we understand there's a need for a building like this in this location, so let's go through that process, because a tenant, a company that provides the service that would go into a building like this, they're just not equipped to or have the understanding or experience to go through a process like this with a city. They know their business. They know how to deliver goods and package them and deliver them to people. They don't know the planning and permitting process that this building has to go through. So that's why you have to do it in the speculative way, but cover as many people as you can with the design to hopefully attract a tenant to this location.
Being that it's a spec building, is there a possibility of having it smaller, less trucks, less impact?
Hi, Planning Commissioners. My name is Benjamin Horning. I'm Director of Development for Dedeaux Properties. And just a little more to expand on. So we kind of specialize in this type of facility. Niche logistics is kind of what we do. We own several of these types of facilities, this exact configuration. We work with several tenants all over Southern California. We also have an arm of our firm that's not necessarily real estate related. It's actually a logistics company called DART that's centered in the City of Commerce. So it's kind of been our background. That's how the company was founded. We know the industry very well. We've had several tenants, we know that there's a lot of demand for that type of facility here, and we think it's going to do very well. We're not going to have a problem leasing it, I'll tell you right now. It's not going to be an issue. This type of facility, excuse me, in the supply chain right now is critical, and it is something that is necessary. and is becoming more of a necessity as the supply chain gets a little more complicated and complex as, you know, economies grow and change. So hopefully that gives you guys a little more perspective on that.
Thank you. Okay. So any further? No? We'll go ahead and close the public hearing. And
I'll just remind all of you, since this is a development code amendment, this will have to be a unanimous vote to pass, because when there's an amendment to the development code, a general plan, or a specific plan, you need a majority of the entire commission. There's 9, so a majority of 9 is 5. There are 5 of you here tonight. So this would require a unanimous vote to pass tonight. If there's not a unanimous vote, then this will go on to the City Council with no recommendation from the Planning Commission. And also, one option that you could take is you could continue this to the next meeting when there might be more than 5 of you to come to the meeting to try and get a majority that includes 5, but maybe would not require a unanimous vote, so that it goes to the council with some recommendation, whether the recommendation is for denial or approval. So that is an option you can take.
Question?
Yes, Commissioner Flores.
If we were to make a denial recommendation, would that move forward to City Council with that?
Yes, if someone were to make a motion recommending denial and that gets a unanimous vote, it will go to the City Council with a recommendation for denial.
Got it.
If I may add along to that, we would, if you were inclined to want to forward a recommendation of denial, we would have to do a similar exercise like we did with the accessory dwelling units. In your resolution, we have a series of findings. So maybe the next step would be to kind of, if you're inclined to support a denial of the project, provide staff with some direction as to the reasons for those findings, and we could continue the item so we could come back for that discussion if you'd like. But just quickly, the findings that we have is the proposed amendment. This is as it relates to the development code amendment to change the zoning from commercial to industrial. The proposed amendment is consistent with the general plan, so it would be is not consistent with the general plan, and you would have to kind of share your thoughts as to why you think it's not consistent with the general plan. 2, the proposed amendment would be detrimental to the public interest, health, safety, convenience, or welfare of the city. 3, the proposed amendment would not maintain the appropriate balance of land uses within the city. Item 4 is the subject parcel is physically suitable for the requested land use designations and anticipated land use development. And these are in the packet, so if you wanted to go back and take a look at them at your leisure later, so when we come back, maybe you have some responses. And then the findings as it relates to the development permit would be the proposed development is permitted within the subject zoning district with all applicable provisions of the development code. And so you would say is, it is permitted, but there's an objection that you have. Finding number 2 is the proposed use is not consistent with the general plan, and why. The proposed development is not harmonious and compatible with the existing and future development within the land use district or general area, as well as the proposed uses of the subject property. The next would be the proposed development is not in compliance with the requirements of the California Environmental Quality Act. 5 is there would be potentially significant negative impacts upon environmental quality, natural resources that could not be mitigated properly. And then we have the subject site is not physically suitable for this type of intensity or density of the proposed use. 7 is there are not adequate provisions of public access, water, sanitation, public utility services to ensure that the proposed use would not be detrimental to the public health and safety. And finally, the size and location of the operating characteristics of the proposed use are not compatible with the existing and future land uses within the general area. So essentially, we would have to come up with findings to substantiate in the what's opposite of affirmative?
In the negative.
In the negative.
And one thing to clarify is that to recommend approval of a project, you have to show that all of the findings are met. But to recommend denial, you just have to show they don't meet one finding. Okay, so some of this stuff, there may be adequate access, water, sanitation, utilities to the site. Okay, and you could have that in the resolution saying there is adequate of those things, but you may find, well, we don't find this compatible with the general plan. You know what I'm saying? So you can have it be both, but the fact that they don't, if your recommendation is that they don't meet all of the findings, that justifies recommending denial. Does that make sense?
So with that, if you'd like to entertain a motion to deny the application, there's the affirmative vote to do so, and then we would continue the matter to the next meeting so that we could ratify the resolution if you were inclined to go in that direction.
And if we were to have a motion for continuing the item to July's meeting,
that's awesome.
In hopes that we would have the other 3 commissioners here, can we entertain that as well?
You can as well, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So if we continue, just so I'm clear, we continue it to July, we can still address, consider the recommendations you just put forth right now? We want to do that. Am I right?
There could be a couple scenarios, if you allow me some coaching here. So let's say you're inclined to, either way, I don't mean to speak down. We need to discuss, if you were inclined to deny the project or recommend denial, we would need to discuss the findings, right, and the grounds for denial. So you could continue the item, take no action, continue the item to the July meeting to allow the other commissioners to attend if they are here. In the meantime, you're thinking about these findings, if you will, one way or the other. And so at the July meeting, continue the public hearing, we have the discussion, additional dialogue amongst the commissioners. You make your appropriate recommendations and see how that falls. If you end up without the 5 affirmative votes for approval, then maybe there's an opportunity to start discussing what some of those findings might be. So that's up to you to decide. Thank you.
Then I'd go ahead and I'd like to make a motion to continue this item to the July meeting with no action taken.
And I will second that.
Okay, so Commissioner Quill, obviously, and then Commissioner Flores. Agree. Commissioner Guerrero, Commissioner Armstead, and then Commissioner Lewis?
Yes.
Okay, so it's continued then.
All right, thank you. We will go ahead and move on to item number 9. Before we go on, does anyone need a break? Are we good? Okay. Can we call for a 5-minute break? Thank you. Meeting at 7:59 p.m.
All right. Thank you, Chair. On to item 9. Oops, got my reports mixed up. Item 9 this evening
General Plan Amendment 21-01, Development Code Amendment 2106, Subdivision 2112, and Development Permit Type P 2106. This request is to change the general plan land use designation and the zoning district classification of a property that's currently designated commercial, commercial general 1 specifically, to multifamily residential with a zoning of residential medium. This is for a parcel that is approximately 9.9 acres in size. The proposal then would be to allow the development of a planned residential community consisting of 95 detached single-family residences. This is located on the south side of West Highland Avenue, approximately 600 feet west of Medical Center Drive. This is the property as it currently sits. As I mentioned, it is one parcel, just under 10 acres in size. Sits along Highland, along the commercial corridor there, surrounded by other commercial zoning, and then immediately backing up to an existing single-family neighborhood. This is an aerial of the property. As you can see, there's existing commercial across the street, mobile home community and a senior housing complex to the east in some of the commercial zoning, and then the existing single-family just south of the property. This is the existing site. It's currently undeveloped, just more or less flat property, just kind of native grasses, no structures to speak of or any historical development. The project as proposed, the community itself would consist of 3 different plan types over the 95 units, each plan type with 3 elevations, the Santa Barbara style, the cottage style, and the Monterey style. And in total, between those 3 plan types, the square footages of the units would range between 1,700 and just over 2,100 square feet in size. These are all, as I mentioned, detached 2-story single-family units between 3 and 4 bedrooms. As proposed, should the property be changed to the RM zoning district, the density would allow up to 12 units per acre, which would, based off the lot size, allow for a total of 118 units. The project as designed is only proposing 95, which comes out to approximately 10 units per acre, so they're just below the maximum density. There is both private and common open space designed throughout the community. Because they are all individual lots and units, they each have their own private backyard. It's about 600 square feet in size average for each lot. And then a common open space total of just over 23,000 square feet, kind of in one central park we'll see in a later slide, which comes out to about 250 square feet per unit within the common space. And then there are 43 guest parking spaces within the community. We'll see again on a following slide, as designed, there's no on-street parking. So there's actually designated spaces that they've set aside at multiple points throughout the community that I'll point out. And this property, because of the zoning amendments and the lot size itself, it was subject to full review under the California Environmental Quality Act. As reviewed, there was a mitigated negative declaration that was prepared for the project and an MMRP to look at those items that needed to be addressed based off impacts that the project may generate. This is the kind of conceptual site plan for the property. To the north is Highland Avenue. That is where the primary entrance for the community would be. This is a gated community. I do want to make note of that those are set back off of the street, so there is some queuing space, for vehicles entering, so they wouldn't be backing out onto Highland Avenue. And then there is kind of primarily one road that loops around within the community and a couple that bisect to connect. That road, as I mentioned, is not intended for street parking. It's not designed at the widths necessary for that, so there are designated guest parking areas kind of at the ends of some of the blocks as you get further in the community, and I believe a little bit up around the park space. You can see the 3 different colors. We have kind of an orange, a little bit of a pink color, and a yellow. Those are the 3 different plan types that are throughout the community. And then, as I mentioned, the 3 elevations per plan type. One other note I do want to make to the existing single-family neighborhood to the south, there is the interior road that directly abuts that. There are 2 gates that are proposed that would line up with the 2 existing streets that dead end into the parcel currently. Those are not intended for your primary access. Those are simply for emergency services because they do require secondary access to the site. the single access along the Highland Avenue would not be sufficient for those purposes, but it would satisfy the access for the residents, under normal circumstances. These are kind of the basic, the three different plan types that we're looking at. I said they are all two-story units, so, a little bit narrower units themselves, garages in the front, entries, and then kind of your common living area, kitchen, dining, and whatnot on the first floors, and then bedrooms all on the second floors. The different elevations they have, these don't go for every plan type, but they're typical of the three different styles. This is more the Santa Barbara style, the cottage style, and then the Monterey style. And each of those would be replicated again through each particular layout for the homes. As far as landscaping goes, we do have, along Highland Avenue, it is a limited frontage just based off the shape of the property, but that would all be done kind of additional central landscaping, kind of flanking the entry, kind of to create kind of that prominent entry feature. And then as soon as you enter, that kind of common park space would sit that would serve the community. There are a couple little small landscaped areas in some of the corners that are more for retention. Those aren't really your active spaces. That would pretty much be focused through the central park at the north end. And then a couple renderings of what is being proposed. This is up looking from in the community, kind of up along Highland. So you do have that gated entrance just to the left, and then some of the homes that would back up to Highland, the few that do. And then kind of from almost the same vantage point looking further into the community, you see some of the homes kind of starting to front the sides, and then that common park area that's being proposed for the community. One note I do want to make, there was just an omission on the resolution that was prepared. In the proposal, there was not mention made of the MMRP, the Mitigation Monitoring and Reporting Program. That has been added in the revised copy that was provided for the commissioners. That specific edit does not affect the findings that have been prepared or conditions for the project. It is limited to the title block on page 1 of the resolution, just adding the detail about the recommendation for adopting the mitigated neg deck and the MMRP, and then that same language was added on, where is it? I believe it's page 28. Under the specific action being requested, that line was added as well. More of a procedural matter there just for the technical record, but does not affect the proposal or any of the comments provided on the proposal. And with that correction, our recommendation this evening would be adopting Resolution 2022-031. That would forward a recommendation to the Mayor and City Council, adopting the mitigated negative declaration, adopting the MMRP that was also prepared, and then approving the general plan amendment, the code amendment, the subdivision, and the development permit based off the findings and conditions. With that, I will open it up to any questions. We do also have the applicant and their team here that would be able to answer anything you may have.
Thank you. We'll go ahead and open up the public hearing. Is there anyone?
Good evening. I'm a resident in the south side of that building plan off of Madison Street. And so my concerns are, if I understood correctly, you're going to be using that south side area for service and emergency vehicles only for that. My concern is because the way it's styled right now, if you look at the actual picture of the land, there is a basically worthless fence there that has been used for people who are trafficking through back and forth, and it's not doing anything. My question for you specifically for that gate, is that going to be a fenced gate, do you know, or is it going to be a brick and mortar gate with a entrance for those vehicles? The reason I ask for that is because if it's going to be a wrought iron fence, it's going to get cut. And I know that it's going to happen. It's in the area. Been there all my life. The next question is, I've started seeing actually right now construction trucks and things in and out there in the fields. And as it happens every year, there's always a concern. It's the wild growth there. I don't know if you've taken ownership of it now
And is there going to be something in the meantime as far as reducing the dry brush there? Because it's a concern for us that there are people who are lighting fireworks year-round. So it's an issue for us to see one spark, it's all gone. My next concern is that, is this just a possibility, or is this a plan that starts in 6 months, a year, 2 weeks from now? Those are questions that I have to know, to plan for the noise and the hours of, because I work from home. So are they going to be going till 10 o'clock at night? I'm not familiar with what the ordinance is, if they're going to shut down by 7 p.m. or if it's weekends included, things like that. I'm just looking for basic information on that, because that's directly within literal feet of where you're going to be building for my home.
Excuse me, and thank you. All good questions. I'll try to go through those. We have a few to address. First and foremost, the exterior of the property would be walled in, as it would be for all the individual lots within the community. The specific type of gates, I don't have that information on, but we could have the applicant speak to that. But there would be metal gates with the block walls on either side of that. I'll let them address that, but I want to run through a couple of the other questions first. As far as, I believe we have that, we have the ownership of the property and maintenance. I don't believe ownership hasn't transferred yet. I know that's still something that they're working on, but they could speak a little bit more to that. As far as construction timing, it is standard condition that is in the report and is in our municipal code. Construction is limited between 7 a.m. and 8 p.m. Likely the construction would not continue that late into the evening. I know the communities being built around me are usually done, kind of your mid to late afternoon. But as far as timing, I'll let the applicant speak a little bit more to that as their schedule. What I would say is this is not something where we see the project coming in and just languishing and not proceeding. I did not mention that this is the second project this developer has brought to the community. You may remember about a year and a half ago, a little over a year and a half ago, I think end of late 2020, there was the property down on Ferry Street, just kind of off of Tippecanoe, right above the 10 freeway. Very similar property, was zoned commercial, not really suited for it, given the area and the access. And they came in, did the same type of applications to amend that to the residential as well. And then a similar community, just give or take a unit, almost exactly the same size as this, with the same product type. And that's in construction right now. I know we have models out there, and I think the rest of them are moving forward. So that would be the intention with this project as well. But I will allow the applicant to address a couple of those other matters. Here.
That's fine. Hi, Joe Oftley from Warmington Residential. Thank you for having me here tonight. I want to thank Oliver and Travis and Alex for all their help getting us here today. Just to address those specific questions, they will be more like a wrought iron gate, but those will be secured, not be able to cut. It's also managed by an HOA, so if anyone's going to be messing with that gate, that's going to be on there and repaired really quickly. Same thing goes with graffiti. Those are the types of things that when you have an HOA that is managing a property, that takes care of those property maintenance issues for the entire development. So that's an answer to that. As far as the dry brush, we don't own the property. We're an escrow to buy the property. So we can continue to discuss with the property owner to provide continued maintenance of the property. We don't want to see anything happen out there, but we don't control that. But we'll make a recommendation to the property owner that we'd like to see that happen sooner rather than later. As far as timing, we got to go through this process. We got to go through a permit process, and then we got to start grading. So I think if we're being realistic, we're probably not going to start grading until maybe the beginning of 2023. And that process will probably take, call it 4 to 6 months to get all your site improvements. So that's where you have probably the most dust issues. We're going to be watering constantly, following the law to make sure that we're not having those issues for our neighbors. But you'll have some trucks. If I could get construction workers to work to 8 p.m., I'd be pretty happy, but that's not reality. So they'll be there, but they won't start before they're allowed to, but they're usually done by 2 or 3. That's kind of the typical time frame when construction ends. So, and then you have the construction of the development. It'll probably take at least a year to get through that, which you see the actual vertical construction of the property.
Chair, I have a concern about the elevation, the front elevation on Highland Avenue. Highland Avenue being one of the main thoroughfares through our city forever. The back of the homes are going to be facing Highland Avenue. And you have an entryway there. I saw one slide that you had that showed a gate, an entry gate like that. To me, that doesn't look very pleasant for an entry gate into a community. Also, if it's that close to the street, I would think cars could be backing up again to the street and exiting out on Highland Avenue. I know Highland isn't quite as busy as it used to be, but there still is a concern for traffic backing up onto that main street.
So as it is designed, I mean, I know this rendering is a little bit more of the inside of the community, so it doesn't exactly show the intention for the entry, at least from the Highland side. There is a little bit more. I know it's a little hard to see just because it's a large image on this plan. You do kind of have the tree, trees flanking along here, the center landscaped little island, kind of that pork chop, if you will, that sits through the entry. And it is designed, I would say, for, gates that swing to the interior on the entry side, and then space for about 3 to 4 cars that are stacking there. Would say that this would be something typically, you're not going to have everyone coming in right at the same time, so there shouldn't be issue so much with that backing up. As far as the elevations, I know we don't have it noted on this one. We do have a similar project coming up just next, where we did work. That property as well has a number of units where kind of the sides or the rears of the homes do front the streets. And we did work on that one to get a little bit more enhanced elevations on those particular units, just to create a little bit more of that frontage. In this case, the only place where we really do have the street frontage are these 10 lots here. With the developer's agreement, I would say that could be something that we could work through here. Wouldn't necessarily affect any of the conditions or other things, but could be worked through that design, that final design and plan check process, just to try to beautify those a little bit more, since they are a visible front.
Yeah, just wanted to express a concern about that. Thank you.
No, thank you.
Thank you. Where to start? First of all, I think it's a really nice project. It's good to see more housing developments in the city. My main concern is the housing typology. Being at 3 to 4 bedrooms is pricing out probably the majority of our current San Bernardino community, and would encourage the inclusion at least of some duplex 2-bedroom type of houses that could be more accessible and affordable to folks in our community. And I've seen this in other areas. Sacramento, Natomas has developed these housing developments where a single house like that is just split in half, where they share a wall, and essentially it's 2 separate units for purchase, like a condo of some sort. So would definitely recommend that as a young person who doesn't want to have a family but does want to have a home that's not too large. And everything we're seeing right now, it's minimum 3 bedrooms. It's pricing us out, and sending a message to young people in this city on the type of housing we're providing access to.
Thank you.
Just a clarification on those emergency gates. Who opens? You said the HOA opens it?
No, the maintenance of those, just as with any of the common facilities within the development.
No, during an emergency.
No, I'm saying fire would have access to those. They would be equipped with the necessary mechanisms for emergency services to open up. The reference to the HOA was more just about the property maintenance.
Okay.
Should there be damage or vandalism to any of that or the other facilities.
Okay, and then the other question is, throughout our city, lights, street lights. There's going to be quite a few street lights. That's a big issue in our city.
I know there would be, forgive me, I need to get the exact numbers. The streetlights, I know they are required to do some improvement along Highland there for that. Let me see here very quickly. Yeah, there are some conditions. I believe it's on page, beginning on 18 and continuing on 19 of the resolution. Any of the existing lights, as a standard, would have to be upgraded as a standard condition to the LED systems. And then I believe they do have some language here about the, adding the additional lighting there. But looks like our city engineer can elaborate on that.
Good evening, commissioners. So this is a private community. So all the streets that is within the community is private roads. And we usually try to make it to the standard of the street lighting inside, but we will require that to be an LED. If there is any street light that exists on Highland, we will be asking them to upgrade that to LED lights, which is a more brighter light. And in answer to the question for Commissioner Quayle, so when the residents are queuing to get into the community at the gate, usually it's the one who cannot get in because nobody's answering. Is intercom system, so you call the house, somebody at the house will let you in. Sometimes you didn't get that, they might not be home, so that's an exit route, so they can U-turn and get out for the people behind them to get in. And usually they go behind them so they can get in after, anyways. But that is an escape, so it's designed to do that.
No. No. So I saw in one of the drawings, the way that it is now, there are obviously some power poles that run along, the back of there?
So there are some lines, let me skip back here, that do run along the frontage.
We'll be getting rid of those, and we'll be going subterranean with the...
There are standard conditions for undergrounding of the utilities. And I know that's something, that was, I think, one of almost the first things we talked about when we started looking at the project.
The development is very fortunate that that's not Southern California Edison lines. That is all utility lines, which is cheaper and the best way to get rid of. So they will be underground in that.
Okay, good. And then I know there is some requirement for them to all be solar, green.
Yes, outside of our conditions, there's just requirements at a state level that the homes would have to be equipped with that.
Yes, and then finally, because I love the project, I think it's going to bring some yummy to San Bernardino. Are we doing at least the EV infrastructure in the structures?
I would actually can let the developer speak a little more to that.
Yeah.
Join me.
I'll answer that question and a couple other questions. Yes, they're all going to be pre-wired. Every garage will be pre-wired for electrical vehicle charging. Not to mention, every car has a 2-car side-by-side garage, 2-car driveway. So there's guest parking in some select areas, but everyone's going to have a lot of parking to deal with personally. Street lights, we're I think every 200 feet happy to do street lights, and within we'll hit the 1-foot candle on site, but we won't shine on to our neighbors. So that's something that we're always making sure to be aware of. I understand the comment from Commissioner Flores about the housing typology and attainability. You'd be surprised at how many other communities we go into when we're proposing something denser, and they tell us the exact opposite. We'd like to see something a little less dense. So it's not for everybody. I understand that, but there is a big need for this type of housing in San Bernardino and in a lot of different areas. So we're not bringing that to you, but we do think this is a first-time homebuyer type of typology that we'll see here. It's going to be attainable just by design, location. It's going to be tough to get into. You'll see that there will be FHA approved and VA loan approved pricing. We can't give it out because the Department of Real Estate doesn't allow me to market my project until it's approved and ready to be sold. But it'll be attainable. So it's not going to be affordable in the sense that it's going to be deed restricted, but you'll be able to see first-time home buyers come in and buy these homes. And to mention, the cost of construction goes up when you start attaching those units together, so we're trying to keep the price down as much as we can by doing this.
Well, it definitely does look like a very good-looking project and an asset to the area. And I do like that the size of the backyards are limited to 600, so we're not looking at any potential ADUs for that area. So I do like that, so thank you.
We do have one more public comment. Really quick.
Nina?
Good evening. My name is Nina John. I'm a commercial property owner in the area, and I was looking at this vacant lot so many years. So I was wondering what's going to be on that vacant lot. And when I received the notice from the city, there'll be beautiful homes coming. So I'm here today to just say welcome the project. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Anyone else wishing to speak on this item? No? Commissioners? Okay, so we'll go ahead and close the public hearing and entertain a motion.
I motion to approve this project, number 8.
I'll second.
Call for the vote.
Okay, Commissioner Quill? Commissioner Flores?
Aye.
Commissioner Guerrero? Commissioner Armstead? And Commissioner Lewis?
Yes.
All right, it's approved.
All right. Thank you. Now, a little bit of deja vu now. The item 10. This time, similar project. This time, General Plan Amendment 2102, Development Code Amendment 2107, Subdivision 2113, and then Development Permit Type P 2107. This is almost identical in terms of description. This property also zoned general commercial, 5 parcels in total this time, just under 15 acres in size. This development's proposing a total of 133 detached units. It's located on the north side of East Highland Avenue between Palm Avenue and Orange. This is the property as it is currently. As I mentioned, it does have frontage on all 3 streets, although access would not be taken off of Highland, as you'll see in a later slide. Primary access would just be off of Palm with a secondary emergency access off of Orange. Surrounded by other commercial development on the 2 corners at the intersections and then across the street, and then existing single-family neighborhood to the north. This is an aerial of the property, primarily vacant lot. This one does have a slight slope to it, so it's not as flat as the other one. Limited structures there on the far west end fronting Orange that would be removed as part of the proposed development, but otherwise undeveloped. And then you have the existing commercial, as I mentioned, that kind of cuts into the 2 corners of the property. This is the existing site looking from Palm, so this would be kind of where the main entry is. You have the commercial just to the left of you out of frame, and then that existing single-family neighborhood further up Palm going to the north. And then this is along Highland Avenue. As with the previous project, we do have those utilities that would be addressed. I got that one for you. Along with the other improvements that they do have to do along Highland Avenue. This proposal, being a little bit larger, they've kind of split the types of units that would be proposed as part of the development. Approximately half of it would be clustered or conventional units that would be, similar to the previous individual lots with their own private backyards, more your typical kind of detached style. That includes 3 different plan types, and then you have 3 additional plan types that are part of the clustered units that kind of share the common drive that comes off of the main road, and then each with their own little driveway that fronts that. So those are a little bit smaller units, don't have as much private space, just to give a little bit of that variation in what people might be interested in. Each of those would have the 3 different elevations. This time it's cottage, prairie, and the farmhouse style. And they have a little bit more range in size from just over 1,600 to almost 2,500 square feet. And then options for anywhere between 3 and 5 bedrooms
giving possible conversion of some space in the units that we'll see in just a moment. The project here, as with the previous, does allow a density of up to 12 units per acre. That could allow a total of 176 units based off of the proposed zoning designation. But the development as designed today only provides for about 9 units per acre. So they're only about 3/4 of what they could hit based off their current design. As far as the private open space, the conventional lots just under 700 square feet, so very similar in size, small enough backyard to, for recreational purposes, but not for too much more than that. And then the clustered units are a little bit smaller. They would only allow about 250 square feet on average of outdoor space within the private yard. The common open space on this one, you'll see, is just about 22,000 square feet, so a little over 160 square feet average per unit within that common area. And then as well provides 41 guest parking spaces in addition to the garages and driveways for each unit. In similar fashion, this one was also subject to a mitigated negative declaration that was reviewed and in a mitigation plan put together for those impacts that the development was poised to generate. This is the site plan for the project. As you'll note on the east end here along Palm Avenue, that's where you would have that entry. Same idea, gated entry. It does recess, for about 4 cars or so, with stacking, a little bit of an island, and then that option kind of for the turnout, as Alex had mentioned. That would enter into kind of the central park area. This park space is a little bit smaller because it's broken up into a couple spaces kind of over on the west end of the community as well, being that it's a little bit larger. They wanted to divide that amongst the community. Along the north side, kind of the yellow, orange, and red units, those would be more of the conventional lots. So, your detached unit, typical driveway in the front, small, that 600-700 square foot backyard. Throughout that part of the community. And then down along the south end, you have those clustered units where you would come in kind of on a drive here, and then it kind of branches out into the actual driveway portion for each unit. They're a little bit smaller, a little bit closer together with the smaller yards. And we'll see that further on a later slide. I do want to mention, as we had talked about on the previous project, to, I believe, Commissioner Quill's comments, we do have the elevations here that do front. We have quite a number of the units that front along Highland Avenue, and then just about 3 that front along Palm Avenue. There was already discussion. We've worked with the developer, and it's noted within their plan set. It's the exhibit on the resolution to provide those enhanced elevations along those units. Just because Highland Avenue there is, it is a primary street. We do have a lot of visibility, and we do want to provide the acknowledgement of that street and not just back things up to it. Just working through of our 3 different floor plans for those conventional lots. It's typical, 1 bedroom on the ground floor because these are slightly larger units. Your common, on this one, 1 bedroom on the ground, and living area, kitchen, dining, and garage, and then the remaining bedrooms upstairs. As you get into some of the larger ones, you do also have loft spaces that do have the options to be converted to the additional. That's how some of the units can provide up to 5 bedrooms. And then the final, again, fairly typical of the other 2. The elevations here, as I mentioned, the cottage, the prairie, and the farmhouse. This is kind of typical of just one of the floor plans, but it gives you the same kind of style that would be proposed for all of them. So, kind of compatible with each other, but providing enough distinction just to give a little bit of variation throughout the community. The clustered units, as I mentioned, the way they would work, and I don't believe we don't really have a lot of projects like this in the city, but this is a lot of what you do see being built now. Have the common drive that comes in off that main road, and then, well, actually the front 2 units have their driveways off the main road, and then the other 4 you come in on a common drive, and then everybody has their little private drive area right in front of their garage where they could also park, and then their unit, and then just the small outdoor area, kind of around the rear units. And then as well, those, using the same different design or same design styles for the elevations, the cottage, prairie, and the farmhouse. The landscaping on this one, apologize, we did have to break this up onto 2 slides, but you can see you have that entry. It's a little bit more of a kind of a linear entry on this project, so you have more tree line on either side, and then a little bit bigger of a median here to enhance that a little bit more. And then the main park space right as you enter the community, just as with the other, and you see some of the guest parking along the sides of that. And then, we have a much larger frontage along Highland Avenue and Palm Avenue compared to the previous projects. So we have, tree lines running all those streets that would kind of enhance that kind of the pedestrian feel around the edge of the community. And then the other half of the site, this is the western end where you do exit to Orange. Again, this would just be kind of an emergency exit. It would not be, one of the main avenues accessible for the residents. And then you have just kind of some smaller linear park spaces that are kind of built in around some of the remaining areas there. And then a few examples of what we would be looking at as far as this project. These would be the kind of those conventional lots, so more of your typical just inline detached single family, all fronting that main road that runs throughout the community. These are your clustered lots, or it gives you an idea where you kind of come in and then everybody branches off of that main drive into their own private driveway. And then the park space throughout the front of the community. So this would be what you would be seeing if you were to come in that main entrance. And same note as with the previous item, there was that minor correction to the resolution about adding that detail for the mitigation program. Simply affecting that first page and then the action page at the end of the resolution, in no way affecting any of the proposal or the conditions. And with that amendment to the resolution, adding that line, our recommendation this evening is adopting Resolution 2022-032. This would also forward the recommendation to the Mayor and City Council to adopt the mitigated negative declaration, the mitigation program, and approving the general plan amendment, the code amendment, the subdivision, and and the development permit. Excuse me. And with that, I will open it up to any questions. Thank you.
Okay, we'll go ahead and open up the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on this item?
I apologize. I actually just remembered one other thing. We do have a letter that was distributed at the beginning of the meeting for this item. This was provided by a resident. I don't believe there was an address provided in the letter, but one of the residents that was noticed about the project. This was back when it went through our development review committee a few weeks ago. We did provide that as well at that hearing, but also wanted to allow you the chance to review that and their comments on the project. But they are not here. It's simply an email that we received.
Do we need to read this into the record, or? Okay.
No.
All right, just accept it. So with the public hearing open, anyone wishing to speak on this item? No? Okay. Commissioners? Commissioner Quill?
Appreciate bringing more housing, of course, and it looks like a good project. One of my questions is, what does pedestrian access in and out of this look like for residents who want to just walk to nearby commercial centers? So will they have to go through that main driveway?
Yeah, because the units themselves pretty much, let me skip back to one where you can see everything. There we go. Because the units themselves, especially along Highland Avenue, do take the entire frontage, there really isn't any pedestrian access designed in there. It would be all through the main entry, primarily along Palm Avenue.
Okay, that seems, I would recommend at least some type of pedestrian gate for folks to shop and not have to drive out, but that's just me.
I think as it's designed and with the way it sits, all of the commercial is really, nothing is right there along that frontage. So were you to come out there, you would be going down to the corner. Primarily the major commercial that abuts this is the center just to the east along the other side of Palm Avenue. So the access really does front that. And I think would give a fair bit of connectivity with that surrounding use.
Okay, a little confused. There is no pedestrian gate at all? Like, I know some other, this is a HOA gated community, right?
Yes,
Don't they usually
You wanna
have
speak to
a
it?
car entrance and a pedestrian entrance?
there is pedestrian access, but it's still integrated within the entrance there along Palm. It's not a separate, in another part of the community.
Oh, okay.
Is that pretty much it?
Yeah, there's going to be access on Orange and Palm, so there'll be a separate pedestrian gate. You can walk out next to what would be the vehicular gate. Yeah, just like you would normally see in any other gated community.
It would just be nothing along Highland Avenue.
Yeah, we don't have anything planned along Highland at this point.
Okay. And then also the lights, again, the light issue, there will be.
Same, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
These utilities aren't as cheap. Yeah.
No, same improvements, same conditions for what they would need to do as far as the on-site lighting and the minimum candle, and then the improvements either if they are missing or the improvements to the existing light infrastructure along all three streets.
Yes. Wow. Beautiful. Have you taken in consideration where you're putting this beautiful complex? I'm just asking. And let me go a little further so you can go ahead and. I was almost excited as Commissioner Flores was pointing out the fact that there was no pedestrian or not a lot of pedestrian entrance in and out. It is gated.
Correct.
Security gates. You're going to need that. And the lighting is good. The block wall that is running along Highland Avenue for quite a ways. What's the height on that wall? Are we stuck at 6 feet?
Yeah, it is still 6 feet. I mean, there's some minor deviations in that just because of the grade changes with where pads will be set, but it'll maintain that average of 6 feet. And then there is as well, let me skip forward. There is also going to be that landscaped perimeter on the outside of that. It'll help kind of buffer and break that up a little bit.
The entrance off of Palm Avenue. First, wait, and help me get. So, is this project site? Is it? I get it's on the north.
Yeah, let me skip back
northwest.
to the
But is it north of Highland Avenue?
Yes. So
it is.
So here's the project site we're looking at. Highland Avenue is this street here. So it directly sits at the south end of the project.
It is north of Highland. So the
Arco station on the corner there, car wash on the left side over there.
Okay. Well, that's a little better. Okay. And the entrance that's on Palm, is that a gated? It's.
Yes.
Same thing as what we did on Madison and Gardena on the other property, where it's emergency vehicle access only. So you won't have residents of our neighborhood or any other neighborhood going in and out of that. It was only in case of emergency, a fire truck or a police officer or an ambulance could exit that way.
The one on Palm?
No, so the one on Palm is your main entry. Yeah. The one on Palm is your main entry. That's the one that's recessed. It has kind of that queuing space for it. There is that secondary gate along the very west end on Orange right here. But as mentioned, that's simply for secondary access. It's one of the standard requirements for emergency services.
The average, just the average, well, you did go over some of the square footage. The front yards, is this one of those deals where the builder is going to be basically landscaping the front yards and the backyard is just dirt?
Yes, that's typically how it works in this type of setup.
And they are block walls between each unit?
Correct.
Wow, you've really covered you've done your homework. Okay.
We've done a couple
what about the common, not the common area, yeah, the open space there is any of that going to be artificial turf, or did you make plans for any of that?
I don't think there's any artificial turf there. It's all going to be natural. There's going to be some turf areas for kids to play and do different things on that, but a lot of it will be drought tolerant landscaping or native plantings. That's what you're looking at right there is the park area.
A lot of
it's a lot of grass.
Pretty much the way that that most are doing it now is, you know, again, kind of all of the drought tolerant shrubbery, but you just still provide limited, you know, natural grass areas just for, you know, for kids to play in and other people to enjoy.
Okay. All right, that's all. And yeah, let me see, is that it? Yeah. Oh, there's one other little thing. So 41 guest parkings
Yes.
for a unit that, well, maybe it just doesn't, I don't, you got 40, you got 100 and what is it, 133?
Correct.
Remember, 2-car garage, 2-car driveway,
Yeah. So
and 41.
Each
guest
unit
parking.
would still have the capacity for 4 parking spaces with their garage and driveway.
Yes.
Both the conventional and the clustered units.
Mm-hmm.
And then there would be 41 on top of that.
On top of that.
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna let you go with that. Because it's just that you got a bigger complex. Okay, I'm not making any comparisons, but it's bigger than something else I heard that has 43.
That's correct.
What was the determining factor that got you to 41?
Bedroom count's a big one. You know, so the smaller units in the clusters has less bedrooms, so you're seeing to see less cars most likely in those areas. It's also going to be way more attainable for Commissioner Flores in those units as well. They're smaller.
Got to keep it.
You
so we'll just said that from the beginning.
So that's the main thing is that we're spreading them out throughout, and everyone has 2-car garage, which our HOAs restrict those to operable vehicles only. So you can't just create that to be a storage unit. You can't just plug in your classic cars you're restoring. I mean, I don't know. Unless your neighbors complain, but it's for operable vehicles only. That's the intent of the garages. So the parking is supposed to be in garage, and if you have guests, they can use the driveway. And then if there's a party and you have people over, there's 41 spaces that people can.
The HOA is going to be somewhere near, or are they just
It's run by the homeowners, and there's a management company that we install before we get in. We're part of the board for a while, and we get it all set up and going. It has reserves that are going to be placed when we get started, and people start paying right away as we get into the HOA. And then as homeowners start buying these homes, they start taking over and are elected to that board to take over. But it's all regulated by the Department of Real Estate.
Well, okay, I'll be quiet.
And yeah, we do know where we're building. We want to build here. We want to be in San Bernardino. We know this property. Yeah. We looked at it very closely. We had looked at what's going on all sides and how we're going to address it. That's why you see some of the bigger lots up closer to the bigger homes that are existing. And then as we get closer to Highland, we get a little more dense. And so we're trying to provide some consistency and some transition into the uses in the area. So we're well aware of what it looks like, and we're hoping that we can improve that area.
Just south of Highland,
Yeah, for sure. There's to the north of Palm, north of Highland as well. Yeah,
Yeah.
we're aware. Yeah. Yeah.
You know what? This is going to be. This is how you turn it around.
Yeah.
This is how you turn it around. I like it.
We believe in San Bernardino. So.
Me too. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else wishing to speak on this item? No? We'll close the public hearing and entertain a motion.
I motion to approve item number 10.
And I will second the motion.
Commissioner Quill? Commissioner Flores?
Yes.
Chair Guerrero?
Aye.
Vice Chair Armstead? Commissioner Lewis?
Yes.
Okay, let's move it on.
That's yours. Indeed, that's a good one.
Okay, moving on to item number 11.
11.
Oh, that was. Yes, thank you. Okay. We are on we are on the last few minutes then. Planning Commission reports and announcements.
Commissioners, I do have a couple of items. As I mentioned earlier, we are now in that new noticing process for the 1,000 feet for not just the property owners, but also tenants of that. Just as an example of the change, the last two items that were before you, the two Warmington projects, we sent out over 2,900 notices.
2,827.
I
Don't
said
ask
about.
how I know that.
A lot of licking and folding, so we're continue with that mode. Tomorrow night at the city council meeting, there will be an item. If you may recall, the home occupation permit where we eliminated the limitation of just one home occupation per residence. I remember that, so that's finally made it onto the council agenda, and then it'll have its second reading in July. It'll become effective in August. So that's underway. I know there's been some discussions about truck traffic and so forth. You may have been aware that the City Council did authorize a contract to do a truck route study. So we had the kickoff meeting on that last week. We have a schedule. It's anticipated that item be completed within the next 5 to 6 months, and so you'll see that coming before you. So in a couple of weeks, we have a meeting with the traffic safety staff to kind of discuss what some of the ongoing issues. One of the things that came out of our kickoff meeting was that there are some areas of our municipal code that we might be able to clean up as it relates to like on-street parking and those kinds of things. And so right now we've, there aren't real stringent restrictions on on-street truck parking. Or there are some areas that should be signed and aren't. And so we are looking to make some recommendations here in the near future to the council in terms of what are those quick fix items that we can do to alleviate some of the impacts that have been provided. And that's really it for me. And so I appreciate the evening. Thank you.
It'd be great to get a RENA update now that we've passed so much housing at some point. The housing needs update.
So we are in the process of preparing our new housing element, and so we haven't. I know at the next meeting we are going to provide our 2021 annual progress report. So that'll. We were anticipating to have that on this agenda. As you know, the ADUs have been a big thing of late. ADUs do count towards your RENA number, your target housing for the city. And so what we've done is, I'll thank Harold. He's gone through exhaustive efforts of going through all of our records as it relates to the permits for single-family residences and the ADUs. I know that right now in the system we have close to 200 projects and submitted in the Building and Safety Department that's going through the review process. I think we've issued almost 200 as well already just this year. And so we've been updating that annual report, and we're working with PlaceWorks, our general plan consultant, to finalize that so we could submit that to the state. Part of the requirement is that it be approved by the Planning Commission, the annual progress report be approved by the Planning Commission and the City Council. And so that's why we're looking forward to bringing that to you this coming meeting. Thank you.
I motion that we adjourn.
Voice vote.
All right, and how do we vote? Voice vote?
We could have that item in London if you want to do it.
All those in favor? Aye. All right.